So welcome everybody. I'm Mike Perham, I'm Director of Innovations and External Relations, and this is brought to you by the Library and Innovation Management as part of our Open Science support. And we have Lenny Teytelman and Emma Ganley presenting on advanced tips and tricks for Protocols I/O. We did on October 19th, we did the introduction and basics of Protocol I/O, and that is recorded. And Emma has provided that link in the chat box if you'd like to go save that and watch that later if you haven't had that opportunity. But again, thank you all for joining us. I hope you get a lot out of this repository, which is very flexible. It's been very useful. We've seen a lot of growth with it. And with that, I will hand over to Emma and Lenny. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mike. And thanks everyone for joining. I'm imagining there's a lot of Zoom fatigue going on, but hopefully we will be able to share some nice tidbits around using protocols.io today. And we are very happy to answer questions either as we go along or at the end. There'll be lots of time for that. If you do have a question that's relevant during, feel free to add that in the chat box or Q&A, and the person who's not presenting may be able to answer it via the chat before we get over to questions afterwards. So I'm just going to do a really quick introduction and recap of how you claim your premium account if you haven't already, in case there are people here that haven't done that. So as you all know, you have a site license at Janelia that allows you all to have premium accounts. So through the webinar today, there'll be just three main sections. So I will be very brief at the start, and then Lenny will do a lot of demoing of the advanced functionalities, and you should feel free to add requests because I'm sure he'll be able to add things on the fly through that if you have specific things. The benefits with your premium accounts, if you don't remember, are that you have unlimited use. You can have as many private files as you like, and also workspaces to kind of organize the files that you're working on, the protocols that you're working on, which should allow you much more efficient management of content with different collaborators or for different projects, things like this. You can do as much collaboration with colleagues at Janelia, but also outside of Janelia, collaborators in other locations if you want to access to training like this, but also please do request demos if there's something specific you would like us to run over with you. And ultimately, this is just going to make your research much better and much more reproducible. And I will quickly touch on the protocol import service again, in case it's something that you haven't yet managed to take advantage of. So if you haven't claimed your premium account, the link at the bottom here, if you follow that, there are instructions, but essentially sign up for an account if you don't have one already. Click the Upgrade Now button on the left. Select your organization in the drop down, make sure you're on academia, not industry, and then the drop down you'll find HHMI Janelia. Pop in your email and you can validate the email and verify your organizational account. If you have used your Janelia email, it will automatically have been premium. You'll only need to do these upgrade steps if you didn't use a Janelia email address. The protocol import service, we will enter a protocol for you if you have one, like an old one in the lab that's all in PDF or Word format or whatever format you have it in. You can send that to us, submit it, enter the code shown here, and we will have editors enter the protocol for you and then liaise with you to revise it if you spot things you would like to change, and then hand over so that you hold the ownership of that protocol. The missions are easy to share method details during and after publication, and open access repository. We now have over 100,000 users, 11,000 public and 38,000 private protocols. So it is growing month on month, and we've been very pleased to see content coming through from people there at Janelia. And at that point, I am going to stop and hand over to Lenny, who will start to do a demo for you.
Thank you, Emma. And I'm Lenny, CEO and co-founder of Protocols.io. I will go over some of the things that were in the agenda in the table of contents for this presentation from Emma, and these are basically things that researchers routinely ask us about. Most of the platforms should be intuitive and not need workshops, but there are some things that might take a couple of months to discover, and they might be useful right away. So we're going to hit some of those frequently asked, more advanced features of protocols.io, including how to get your existing methods in, some recommendations for organizing internal workspaces, sharing with your collaborators, and then we'll touch on the editor, tables, how to embed videos in the protocols, but we won't go the full hour. We'll also, and I want to thank some of you who've already given feedback to Mike so that it guides a little bit the presentation and those frequently asked questions. But if there are things we haven't gotten to, if you already are using protocols.io and have questions, specific questions, can I do X, Y, or Z? While I'm presenting, it's a great time to pop those into the chat so that we can make sure to get to them, or at the end, just unmute yourself and ask about it. And as a reminder, this is being recorded. We'll circulate both the recording. Mike will give it to Mike, and he'll circulate both the recording and the slides that Emma was showing if you need a reminder for how to activate things. All right, so with that, I will share my screen. And before you're sharing protocols publicly as part of papers that you're publishing and getting DOIs, making something public is fairly straightforward using the publish button, self-explanatory. So we don't have too many people asking, how do I do that? But we do often have a question, well, our lab is already using Google Docs, and some people are using an electronic lab notebook, and some have the protocols and Word files, and we have these 50 existing protocols, and it's easy enough to publish something we've already put into protocols.io, but what do we do about organizing existing content in our research group? And so I want to start with a few suggestions for how to easily do that. So here's a demo group. And one thing is that when you are in a workspace, this is the file manager. So just to orient us, when you come to protocols.io, if you're on the landing page, you can get to your workspaces and your organizational space by going to the file manager. And on the left-hand side, you'll have the workspaces that you're part of. So I've now clicked on one of these workspaces. Here are folders and subfolders inside it. And many of you, or most of you, will know that you can create a new protocol and put it in this workspace. But what might not be obvious is that you can actually open a file manager on your computer and drag and drop existing protocols, PDFs, Word files, Excel files, zip files right into protocols.io. So you can't see me opening my Finder on my computer right now, but you should be able to see the PDF that I'm doing drag and drop with. So now you can see it says uploading a file. So this is not a protocols.io record. It's a PDF, same way as you would add it to Dropbox. If you have a collection of files, I'm adding a zip, so you can just drop them into the parent work folder of the workspace, the top level. You can drag them into specific folders and subfolders. And obviously, this takes no work at all. You can also, instead of just drag and drop, you can also go to upload files when you click new. So instead of a new folder, a new protocol, you can select upload files and get them either from another cloud account that you use. We have integrations with all of these on the left-hand side, Google Drive, Dropbox, and the others that you see, including the Open Science Framework from the Center for Open Science. So you can connect through auth to your accounts there, or you can just select from your machine directly and upload files. So that takes virtually no work. The thing to keep in mind is that's an easy way to take existing 50 protocols and just drag and drop them. So it's the easiest thing to do. It's not the best thing to do. And we'll talk about, more efficient ways of sharing that might take slightly more time, but that is something that instantly allows you to get existing protocols into a central place. And if anyone leaves the team or is on an extended vacation, you're not wondering where those laboratory methods are. They're all in the same space. So that's easy and straightforward. However, it quickly, if you have 50 protocols in here, it quickly becomes unwieldy, depending on how many files you share this way, to actually find, do the searches and find the most recent method and make sure that you're all on the same page. So the next best thing that we recommend is if you have an extra minute or two, and you want to quickly get an existing protocol in, create a new protocol, and I'm going to say biology protocol, could be computational workflow, it doesn't matter. In this particular case, it doesn't matter what you choose. And instead of adding the information step by step, if you're really short on time, what we recommend is just give the title, put a little bit of information around how and why you use this protocol. And if it's an existing protocol, scroll down on the description tab. Scroll down the description tab, and there just attach that PDF. Select from File Manager. Nope. So you can drag and drop or click here to select one of the files. So the exact same way I just did drag and drop for an existing protocol, I am now putting it as an attachment to the protocol. So this is now protocols.io record. Why would you do this instead of just doing drag and drop? So it's not infinitely better than what I showed before. And if we go back to the file manager, there is now the protocol we just created called DNA transformation. It's still an attachment. It's still just a PDF, but there are a few benefits. So first of all, you are adding title, abstract. You can add keywords. If I go back to the editor, in the metadata, you can have keywords that allow you to find the protocol. So going back to the description page, you can add keyword synonyms. So if you have high performance liquid chromatography in the title, here you would put HPLC and other synonyms and shortcuts to help you find it later. The abstract is the key part. If you take that minute, it takes 30 seconds to attach the file. If you take another minute to add information to the abstract, these are indexed. So when you're searching inside the file manager in a specific workspace, or you can search across all of the workspaces that you have, because you have the abstract, because you've put in keywords, you'll actually be able to find it, right? Rather than just archive.zip. So that's an extra minute, but there is significant benefit to doing that. And importantly, when you create a protocol and you have it as an attachment, you actually can then publish it, right? So just with the abstract and attachment, if you really want to get 10 existing methods out into the public, you can share just the PDF that only sits like in Dropbox. It just sits in your workspace. You can't make this public. But if you create a protocol and add this file as an attachment, you can get a DOI, you can share it publicly. Again, doesn't take full advantage of Protocols.io and the editor and all of the reproducible features and components that we have. We'll get to that in a second, but it is a quick way to get existing things into Protocols.io. And then if you're sharing it with collaborators and you want it out in public, once you've done that, you can hit publish. And don't forget, because there is versioning on Protocols.io, if you've shared 20 existing things just as attachments and people are asking you questions and you can see that there's a lot of attention and need for one or more of these, you can always come back, click new version, and then instead of just the attachment, take advantage of the editor, put in the existing steps, and improve the presentation of the protocol. But these are two super quick ways, right? Drag and drop the actual PDF or create a protocol or collection and attach the existing protocols to that record. So next, we'll move on to sort of leveling up in this game, a little bit more time, but again, dealing with existing protocols. So here is a Google Doc with a protocol with steps. And this time I'm going to go over creating a new protocol and actually adding the steps into it and taking advantage of the editor. So let's go back to the protocol we already created. And instead of, you can see, obviously I can add one step at a time and I can go back and forth between step 1, 2, and 3 and just copy paste them individually, but there is no reason to do that and waste time. What I'm going to do is select all of my 16 steps. And then in the editor, I'm going to click on insert steps from a text file. You can do this from Word, Google Doc, or an existing PDF. And it asks you, is it a numbered set of steps like I have in this example, or is each line a new step? So choose the right part. You can also add Markdown here from existing protocols, but I'm going to paste in 16 steps. Each number is a step. Preview. And you can see it's importing it into the step-by-step format. So now, once that finishes, all I have to do is add the authors, copy paste the abstract, and before start. So go back here, guidelines and warnings. Here's my before start section. So I'll put it in. So for an existing protocol, I'm not just adding it as an attachment. This will take a couple of minutes, but the moment I've done that, here's my attachment. And here is the step-by-step information. Now, one of the things, if we're talking about improved levels of presentation, one of the things we recommend is adding sections to your protocol. And I'll explain in just a second why. So, you can imagine sort of headings, section headings in your protocol where you say first part is preparing the complex, and then next part is collecting the sample, and then we're doing electroporation and then observation. So in a Microsoft Word, these might be headings, bolded headings. What you would do on protocols.io is turn them into sections. So I'm going to say, here's a section title. add that. It color codes it. And then on step 5, we have a new section. So what I'm going to do is go to step 5 and say that this is a new section. Where is my section? Set a new section. So instead of preparing, this is collecting the samples. Now there's a different color here. Go down to the next section. Same thing in the menu here, set a new section. Electroporation. So you get the point. It's easy to do. If you're entering steps one by one, it's even easier to add the sections. You just do it in here. You select instead of new step, instead of clicking new step, you would say new section or new substep as needed. So let's do this last part. Okay, so once we've done this, it breaks up the protocol into nice sections. They're color coded. And not only will this help you if you click run on this protocol as you're stepping through it on the day of the experiment, not only does it let you see, okay, I am in section 1, then I'm going to be in section 2. Not only does it help you with the run, but just when you're viewing the protocol, because you've added sections, it creates an outline, so what we call a table of contents. So in the upper left here, you can expand out, you can navigate to the different sections, and you can see the outline of your protocol. Likewise, if you go into the editor, you can click on the right-hand side, you can click show me table of contents, so you can navigate through the protocol easier. If you're sharing it with collaborators or making it public, it's a really nice way to organize the protocol. And then, of course, on the right-hand side, many of you know that you have components. Most of these are self-explanatory, but there are, since we're on the editor, there are a few quick things that I would like to point out that might not be as intuitive as just adding the amount or duration or temperature component. And one of these is the so-called smart component. So where is it? In here. There we go. So a smart component looks like a table. I'm going, these are key value pairs. So I'm going to add a row and say, I would like to record the number of cells. This is going to be a required row. And I'm going to be recording % dead as I'm looking at my plate. So right now it looks just like a 2-column, 2-row table, nothing special about it. But if we go back to that run functionality for the wet lab protocols, particularly this is super handy as you're walking through and you're saying, okay, I'm done with this step. Now I'm on step 2. Because this is required, you can't actually click done. You have to fill in the table at runtime. So I'm going to say 113 cells, 23% are dead. And now I can move on to the next step. And so what this does is it's not a fixed table, but it allows you to record notes and data at runtime as you're performing the experiment to capture the important things. And then when you save it in that same workspace, you'll have a record of how you ran this protocol on that particular day. And you'll have a recording from the smart component of what the values were that you actually captured. And now let's go back. So that's the smart component. And now let's go back into another step and let's talk about tables, because I know that has already come up at HHMI. So you can add, you can select on the upper right, you can select tables, how many columns, how many rows, and obviously you can fill in information directly in here. One thing that might not be obvious is that you can actually add formulas just as you would in Excel or Google Sheets. So you can say A1, so maybe this is 7x, you're making a buffer. So you can enter formulas as you're used to in Excel and Google Sheets in here. But more importantly, if you have an Excel or a Google Sheet with existing formulas, I wanted to show how to quickly and easily get it instead of copy pasting and entering each one by one. I want to show how to get it into tables and protocols IO. So here's a Google Sheet. If I just select and do the copy paste, all I'm getting are the values. Did I select it? The trouble with doing live demos. Okay, so let's see if I add a new table. There we go. So I'm pasting from Google Sheets right now, but actually, if you just do simple copy paste, all you're getting are the numbers rather than formulas. So both in Excel and Google Sheets, what you would need to do to get an existing table in is go to View. Where is it? And you select Show Formulas. So now if I do the same thing as before, because I did the formula view, now if I add a table, we should actually see the formulas in here. So again, works both with Excel and Google Sheets, but this allows you to quickly copy paste and might not be obvious without a demo like this. So this is inserting tables. And another thing that I wanted to go over while we're in the editor is inserting videos. So you can embed images and videos right in the steps. If you've taken your phone into the lab and you did a 1-2 minute video, you can directly upload that into a step. We'll host it on Amazon and that will be part of the protocol. So you just do the insert image video. There's nothing complicated about that. But we also support from YouTube, Vimeo, embedding of videos from other platforms. So quick, if you have a channel, if you've been uploading videos to YouTube, and we really encourage for wet lab protocols in complicated steps to add videos if you're sharing things publicly, or even for new people in your research group. So if you have existing videos and you want to put it into protocols IO, click share and choose the embed code. And this is what I would copy paste from YouTube, works similarly for Vimeo and others. And then go back and instead of clicking insert video, I'm going to click embed media, paste that code from YouTube in here. And now you have, without uploading it and exploding your storage on protocols IO, if you're doing it through YouTube, now you have it in the step, it renders right in there. It's not just a link to the video. And as people are viewing the protocol, they can turn it on and view it as they're running the protocol or as they're viewing it. So these are very easy. You don't need a production team with camera crew. If you have a smartphone, these are really easy to create and they do a lot for improving reproducibility. And if you're sharing things publicly, these make a lot of difference for people for whom English is not a native language. So text is a lot harder to parse than, of course, watching someone do it. So this is how to embed videos in. We've gone over existing protocols. And just as a reminder, Emma already mentioned it, but obviously because of the site license for HHMI Janelia, because of that, you do have the protocol import, and there was a slide on that, but let's just pull it up here. This interface, again, for existing protocols, you are not, it takes a little bit longer because when you submit to us, it takes a little bit longer than just drag and drop, but our editors will, if you send us an existing protocol, put it in, format it, check it, then share it with you. Em already shared the code. You don't need to pay because of the site license with HHMI. So if you have existing protocols you're thinking of sharing publicly, please don't hesitate to use our service. It's free. You'll check it. We'll reassign it to you privately. You decide if and when to publish it, or if you need to edit anything in there. And there is actually, you'll have a dashboard once you submit an existing protocol to us through this interface. You'll be able, when you sign into protocols.io, you'll be able to see the progress. Has an editor already put it in? Has it been assigned? Is it ready for you to check? So you'll have a dashboard to see the progress of the import, and you shouldn't hesitate to take advantage of that. And before we open up to questions and answers part, I do want to go over the organization inside of a workspace, some of the things that we recommend. And one important thing that does keep popping up and can lead to a little bit of confusion, so I do want to highlight in terms of sharing. So I am in a workspace. Let's imagine that my whole team is using it. 20 other people are part of the workspace. There are folders that you can create. I think I already mentioned, you can upload files. You can create folders and subfolders just as you would in your file manager on your laptop. We recommend not just growing a huge list of protocols in the parent space of the workspace, because it quickly gets unwieldy once you have more than 10, 15 protocols. You're scrolling through a lot. It's hard to find. What we recommend, what we've seen teams use successfully, is a structure perhaps like this, where you have a folder for protocols that are in development, protocols that are tested and robust and are commonly used in your research groups. Those that have been deprecated, don't throw them away, put them in archive so that if there are questions on papers from 5 years ago, you can still figure things out and resolve discrepancies, but they're not necessarily in use anymore. Other teams, we've seen them, if they're working on multiple organs or multiple species, they'll organize folders and subfolders by the sample type, by the type of organism they're working with. So you'll have liver, kidney, brain protocols, and within those you might have in development, tested, or robust. So it doesn't matter what organization you choose, but it's worth having a conversation early on, agreeing with your team how you're going to store it, or even for yourself. It will save you a lot of time down the road. And speaking of folders and subfolders, an important part I want to highlight is that any workspace that you create will have by default a preset folder there with your name. So if you mouse over it, it says this is your private folder. That's your sandbox. So if your supervisor or project manager created the workspace, it is a collaborative workspace with multiple members, but this folder is visible to me and me only. So any protocol that I create if I put it in the Lenny Teytelman folder, that is only visible to me. And as I said, this can lead to a little bit of confusion. You're thinking, oh, I shared the protocol, I put it into our workspace. If it's sitting in here, only you can see it. So you would have to go into your folder and drag it to the other folders or the parent space in order to share it with other members of the workspace. So right now it's visible to me and me only. I have to move it, either drag and drop, or on the right-hand side, select move. I have to move it to the common space and folders that other teammates will have access to. You can set your workspaces if you're administrator to what is the default behavior. Can other people in the workspace only see it, or can they see and edit it? But regardless of what permissions and settings apply to a workspace, for any protocol, even with people who are outside of a workspace, don't forget that you can always come in, click share, and you can decide what are the permissions for the workspace members, right? So who has access? This is the group, demo group, this is the workspace, and I'm deciding that anyone who's part of it can edit and publish or view only. But on top of that, you can share the protocol with individuals. You're not inviting them to the workspace, you're just giving them access to the protocol. And if you're submitting it as part of publication or want to give someone preview of it, and you're not ready to get a DOI from it and make it public, there's also a private link that you can click on the top right. This is different than inviting someone by email, in that they don't need an account on Protocols.io. They won't be able to edit the protocol and collaborate with you. You can't set their permissions, but you can grab a private link that you can forward to people as needed, and they will instantly be able to open the protocol and view what you're sharing with them. All right, so I think there are many things I could be talking about, but I think I'll stop here because we already have some things in the chat, and let's go over some of the existing questions and open it up to any others. Oh, there's a great question. If I have a public protocol and I create a new version, is it public automatically? And the answer is, with forks, with versions, for any protocol, it's private by default. So if I go to some of my existing protocols that I've made public, if I create a new version, it's private. I get to edit it. You cannot edit something that's public. So if I go to a protocol that I've shared a couple of years back, this is public, version 1. If I create a new version, it becomes editable. I decide where to put it. So let's put it in the demo group. And you'll notice that it does not have a DOI. It is not public, but it does have the edit button now, in contrast to the public protocol that I've shared. So I can click edit, I can work with it. And then when I'm ready, I click merge and publish this version. And that's when version 2 will appear. So right now there's version 1, and there are private versions, and you can see it indicated here. On the thumbnail, you can see it indicated here with the lock. These are private protocols. The dot tells you which one you're viewing right now, so you can navigate between them. You can use the compare functionality to remind yourself what's different between them, but it's up to you to make it public or share it. By default, it's only visible to you. And of course, if I create it inside of a workspace, other members of the workspace will have access to it. So if we go back, where is our demo group? There we go. If we go back to the file manager, we should now see the new version of the protocol that I created. So it will be visible to other members of the workspace, but it is not public. It doesn't get a DOI by default. You decide if and when to share it. There was another question for the code for protocol import. There's a question, what is the deadline? And Mike and Emma have replied, there is no deadline, so feel free to use our editorial support. As long as HHMI Janelia has the site license, we'll continue providing that service. And as I pause, Emma, any things that we missed in this demo?
I think you've been quite comprehensive. I don't know if it's worth trying to touch on things like the reagent manager and being able to have libraries of reagents and things, or if that's just more complicated, right?
So yeah, those are that's a good point. So there are, I can go back to sharing if needed. There are a lot of features. There is a lot of functionality in Protocols.io that we've added since we went live in 2014. We welcome feedback. We welcome input and suggestions. We constantly keep improving and adding things to Protocols.io. So there's a lot in there. There are collections. There's the publishing flow. There's support for managing your reagents and seeing where did we store them, what shelf they're on. And we can't go over all of the functionality, but as you use Protocols.io, a lot of it should be intuitive. But if you don't want to spend the time figuring things out or looking through the help and documentation, you can always email info. But most importantly, again, because of the site license, you can go to the help section, and anytime you have a question, you can actually request a free one-on-one customer support call. So where is it in here? More information support, and we can add it to the slides and put it into the chat, but there is a request one-on-one demo. You will be able to right away pick a time of when you'd like to connect via Zoom. I want a demo of editor, or you put in something else, and it opens up a calendar view. You choose the day, you choose when you'd like a demo, book a half-hour slot, and you'll connect with our customer support, and it'll be a Zoom call, screen sharing, just as I'm doing here. You can ask additional questions. You can ask for a walkthrough. You can ask, if I have if-then branching logic, depending on how many samples I have in my protocol, how do those components work? How do I put in sub-protocols in the editor? So how do I make collections? There's a lot of functionality that we don't want to squeeze into one demo session like this, but you're always welcome to book a slot and get a demo. So you choose the week and connect.
I think the other area where there may be more to discover or to understand, but may not be as useful to everybody, but the owners of the workspaces or the administrators of the workspaces, there's quite a lot of sort of configuration that you can do to control what rights each of the members of the group have. So if you are overseeing a larger group and you want to get a better insight into all of the administrative tools for that, then we could also arrange a separate connection to run through those pieces of functionality with you too.
And it's this is a good point. Again, can't squeeze everything into one session, but if you have let's find the Parkinson space. If you have collaborators and you have a workspace with 40 members, you can do a lot with the administration, with the settings, like Emma is saying. So, the setup of the workspace, you can also create guidelines for members of the workspace and your collaborators to orient them better and tell them where you expect them to put in protocols, what rules, what resources they have as part of this workspace, and what guidelines you expect them to follow. And then everyone who lands for the first time lands in that workspace when you invite them and joins it, gets that pop-up, gets those instructions. So there are a lot of things. We're not, as we said, we're not going through everything, but we're happy to connect on one-on-one calls or for a specific team or with your collaborators and do a demo and answer questions at any point. All right, so we still have 10 minutes. If you have any other questions, you can send them our way or get in touch as you use protocols I have. Brilliant. Well, thank you everyone who attended. And as we said, we'll circulate the recording and the slides as well. And I'm going to stop the recording now.